You see a group of bikers, leather jackets, arms and faces tatted up, rolling on rumbling steeds. What's your first thought? Trouble? Danger? What if I told you those same guys just raised $50,000 for a children's hospital? That's the reality of motorcycle clubs today. But no one wants to have that conversation. Back in 1945, after World War II, you'd see vets coming home looking for that brotherhood they had in the military. They found it on two wheels. These guys were not looking for trouble. They were looking for family, and that's what motorcycle clubs became. But somewhere along the way, Hollywood got its hands on their story, and, well, you know how that goes. The birth of brotherhood. Fontana, California, 1948. A group of war veterans gather around their motorcycles, sharing war stories. This wasn't just some casual meetup. It was the birth of the Hells Angels, one of the most famous motorcycle clubs in history. But they weren't technically the first. The American Motorcycle Association had been around since 1924, laying the groundwork for what was to come. Now imagine being one of those vets. You've spent years in the trenches, relying on your buddies to have your back. Then finally, you're discharged. No more uniforms, no more missions, no more built-in family. It's just you, trying to figure out how to be a civilian again. That's where motorcycle clubs come in. For thousands of veterans, joining an MC wasn't just about finding a hobby. It was about finding a new support system to help them deal with the trauma of war. These clubs offered something that civilian life just couldn't match. That sense of belonging, of having people who could truly empathize with what you'd been through. You know how they say there's strength in numbers? Well, it turns out there's some real science behind that. Studies show that being part of a community can do wonders for your mental health. It can act as a shield against depression, the feeling of being all alone in the world. But becoming part of a motorcycle club wasn't just a walk in the park. William Delaney, a professor who spent years studying these groups and who is also a biker, says the process of joining, or prospecting as they call it, is a lot like basic training in the armed forces. It's all about teamwork, about putting the group before the individual. Sound familiar? It's this same mindset that keeps soldiers alive out on the battlefield. As these clubs grew, they evolved into something more than just a bunch of guys riding motorcycles. They became a new kind of family. Delaney tells a story about a funeral he attended for a club member who'd been killed. Members from all sorts of different clubs showed up, setting aside their differences to pay respect. That's the kind of deep bond we're talking about here. By the 1950s, motorcycle clubs weren't just a fringe thing anymore. They were a full-blown cultural phenomenon, with thousands of vets finding their place on the open road. These were not the troublemakers Hollywood would later make them out to be. They were guys looking for purpose, for community, for a way to feel alive again after seeing the worst that life had to offer. But as these clubs grew, so did the rumors about them. People started whispering, wondering what these leather-clad groups were really up to. And that's where things started to get complicated. Hollywood's outlaw obsession. Rumors have a funny way of growing legs, especially when they catch the eye of Tinseltown. You've seen the shows, the movies, leather, chrome, and danger around every corner. But the real story of MCs might be more surprising than any movie script. Americans love our outlaws, and Hollywood knows it. From Jesse James to Bonnie and Clyde, we've always had a fascination for rebels. So when Hollywood got wind of these mysterious motorcycle clubs, they saw dollar signs. But here's the thing, they weren't exactly concerned with getting the facts straight. Take the wildly popular Sons of Anarchy, for example. It's a hit show that had a huge impact on how people see motorcycle clubs. But according to William Delaney, it's more fiction than fact. The show paints these clubs as violent criminal organizations, and that image sticks with viewers long after the credits roll. It's not just Sons of Anarchy either. Turn on the TV or hit the movies, and you'll see bikers portrayed as dangerous outlaws more often than not. It's exciting, sure, but it's not exactly fair to the real clubs out there. Delaney points out that as people watch more of these crime dramas, they start thinking crime is way more common than it actually is. And that skews how we see real-life MCs. But here's where it gets interesting. While Hollywood's busy spinning tales of violence and crime, real motorcycle clubs are out there doing some pretty amazing things. We're talking charity rides, community service, supporting veterans, the kind of stuff that doesn't make for exciting TV, but makes a real difference in people's lives. The problem is, you don't see that side of things in the media. Delaney says reporters tend to focus on the sensational stuff, the rare violent incidents that make headlines. but they miss the everyday reality of club life. It's a lot less exciting than Hollywood makes it out to be. Most of the time, it's just regular folks having meetings, planning events, and hanging out with their families. The disconnect between Hollywood's version and reality, it's causing some real frustration among club members. In interviews, many of them have spoken out about how unfair these portrayals are. They're tired of being seen as criminals when they're actually pillars of their communities. So what's the most misunderstood thing about motorcycle club culture? It might just be that they aren't outsiders or outlaws at all. They're often deeply connected to their communities, committed to making a difference. Take the BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse, for example. These guys go through extensive background checks just to be able to support vulnerable kids. That's a far cry from the outlaws you see on TV. But while Hollywood was spinning tales, these clubs were spinning wheels for charity. And that's where the real story gets interesting. Highway Heroes. Now let's talk about the Brotherhood of Bikers. These guys have been active in Pike County, Missouri, and Illinois for more than 8 years. Go ahead and Google them. You'll have to specify Missouri or Illinois before sifting through 1% Outlaw MC News. But the Brotherhood of Bikers are not out there causing trouble. Instead, they're making sure local kids have gifts at Christmas and supporting veterans in their community. And get this, every single penny they raise from their events goes straight back to these causes. No skimming off the top. No fancy dinners for the higher-ups, just pure, compassionate charity. Now you might be thinking, sure, that's one group, but what about the rest? Well, it turns out the Brotherhood isn't alone. Motorcycle clubs across the country are flipping the script on their criminal image. They're organizing massive charity events like poker runs and awareness rides. These aren't just a few guys showing up with pocket money. We're talking full participation from club members and the local community, all coming together to make a difference. But it's not just about raising money. Some of these clubs are getting hands-on in ways that might surprise you. Bikers Against Child Abuse are leather-clad heroes out there protecting kids who've been through hell. They're not just writing checks, they're escorting abuse victims to court, standing guard outside homes, and doing whatever it takes to make these kids feel safe again. And it's working. BACA has reported real improvements in the emotional and behavioral well-being of the children they work with. Kids who were once too scared to face their abusers are finding the courage to testify. They're feeling safer, more empowered. Now, we can't say for sure that it's all because of the bikers. Correlation doesn't always mean causation, but the impact is undeniable. So why do they do it? It's not for fame or glory. According to the Brotherhood of Bikers, Illinois founder Jim Heatherly, it's simple. They just want to help. They see families in need, kids who could use a break, and they step up. It's about being part of the community, about making a real difference in people's lives. Imagine being a kid who's been through the worst kind of trauma. You're scared, you feel alone, and then suddenly there's a group of big, tough-looking bikers telling you they've got your back, that they'll protect you no matter what. Can you picture how life-changing that would be? But it's not just about the big gestures. Sometimes it's the little things that count, and that's where these motorcycle clubs really shine. The everyday heroes. Picture this. A bearded biker with tattoos and a leather vest, sitting cross-legged on the floor, having a tea party with a group of giggling kids. It's not a scene from a comedy. It's just another day for some motorcycle club members. These tough-looking bikers aren't just organizing big charity events. They're diving into the trenches of everyday life, making a difference in ways that might make you do a double take. The Brotherhood of Bikers have been active in Pike County, Missouri, and Summerhill, Illinois for 8 years now, doing the kind of work that doesn't make headlines but changes lives. You might see them at a local nursing home, spending time with seniors who don't get many visitors. Or maybe they're at a veteran center, listening to stories from guys who've been through hell and back. During Christmas, they're out there making sure every kid in their community has a present to unwrap. It's not glamorous work, but it's the kind of thing that keeps a community together. Now, when is the last time you saw an uplifting story like this on the evening news? Now you might be wondering why these big tough guys are so keen on helping out. Well, according to Jim Heatherly from the Brotherhood of Bikers, it's pretty simple. He says, the story about bikers being bad and this and that is kind of a myth. Most bike clubs are really good clubs. They help their communities a lot. It's not about proving anyone wrong or changing their image. It's just about doing what's right. All this community service is not just helping the people they're serving. It's changing the bikers themselves. When you help others, it does something to you. It It gives you a sense of purpose, a feeling of belonging that goes beyond just being part of a club. Think about it. These guys might have had tough lives themselves. Maybe they've seen things in war that still haunts them. Or maybe they've had run-ins with the law in the past. But when they're mentoring an at-risk kid or escorting an abuse victim to court, they're not just tough guys on bikes anymore. They're protectors, mentors, friends. And that kind of work is healing. It gives them a chance to be the heroes they might have needed when they were younger. It lets them use their strength and their intimidating appearance for good. Every time they make a kid feel safe or help a veteran feel understood, they're not just changing someone else's life, they're changing their own. Changing the public's perception of quote-unquote outlaw biker is incidental to that, not the main goal. So next time you see an MC roaring down the street, don't just focus on their appearance or the patches on their vest. Think about the quiet moments, the teddy bear tucked into a saddlebag for a scared kid, the gentle hand on the shoulder of a grieving widow, the patience in helping a troubled teen. That's the real face of many motorcycle clubs today. But with all this good work, why does the outlaw image persist? It's a question that's got these clubs scratching their heads and working harder than ever to show their true colors. Breaking the stereotype. Ever wonder what it takes to join a motorcycle club? The process is actually demanding. So why would a CEO or a school teacher put themselves through that? When you think of a motorcycle club member, what image pops into your head? A rough and tumble outlaw maybe? Well, it's time to shake up that stereotype. You're just as likely to find a professional wearing those leather vests. Mechanic, construction worker, contractor, truck driver, real salt-of-the-earth people. The face of motorcycle clubs is slowly changing, and it's a lot more diverse than you may think. Take a look at any major MC today, and you'll find members from all walks of life. We're talking doctors, accountants, business owners, educators, you name it. It's not uncommon to see a CEO trading in his suit for leather on the weekends. This isn't just a hobby for these folks. It's a way of life, a chosen family that crosses all social and economic boundaries. But joining one of these clubs isn't as simple as just signing up. Many clubs have a rigorous vetting process that can take months, even years. They call it prospecting, and it's no joke. Prospects are put through their paces, tested on everything from their riding skills to their commitment to the club's values. It's a process that's designed to weed out those who aren't serious about the lifestyle. So why would successful professionals put themselves through this? What's drawing them to this world? For many, it's about finding a sense of identity and belonging that they can't get anywhere else. It's about being part of something bigger than themselves, a brotherhood or sisterhood that's got their back no matter what. And of course, there's the freedom of riding. For a lot of these folks, joining a motorcycle club is about the camaraderie and service. It's a way to give back, to make a real difference in people's lives. Whether it's organizing charity rides, mentoring at-risk youth, or even building ramps for people with disabilities, these clubs are making a positive impact. At the end of the day, what ties all these different people together is a shared passion for riding and a commitment to their club's values. It's about finding a place where they can be themselves, where their professional status doesn't matter, as much as their willingness to show up for their brothers and sisters. But even with all this good, these clubs still face challenges. Old stereotypes die hard, and changing public perception isn't easy. It's a battle these clubs fight every day, one ride at a time. The road ahead. You might think law enforcement is the biggest threat to motorcycle clubs, but there's an enemy far more insidious. It's lurking in the minds of everyday people, and it's proving harder to beat than any rival gang. We're talking about public perception, and it's the biggest challenge these clubs face today. MCs are at a crossroads. On one side, you've got tradition, the very thing that's kept these groups strong for decades. On the other, there's the need to adapt to a changing world. It's a balancing act that's got club leaders working overtime. Motorcycle clubs are getting older. The young blood aren't following suit. It's got some folks worried about the future. Will these clubs still be around in 20, 30, 40 years? It's a question that keeps a lot of members up at night. But they're not just sitting around wringing their hands. No, these clubs are taking action. They're working hard to change how people see them. It's not just about looking tough anymore. It's about showing the world who you really are. And it's not just talk. These clubs are putting their money where their mouth is. They're organizing more charity events, getting involved in local issues, and opening their doors to let people see what they're really about. Transparency is the name of the game. The aforementioned William Delaney, PhD and member of Hell on Wheels MC, says there's a bigger issue at play. He reckons law enforcement's focus on motorcycle clubs as potential threats is way off base. In his view, those resources could be better used tackling real dangers to society. So what's the future look like for these clubs? Perhaps MCs will work hand in hand with local governments to solve community problems. Sounds far-fetched? Some clubs are already heading in that direction, using their organizational skills and manpower to tackle issues like homelessness or disaster relief. It's not going to be an easy ride. These clubs are going to have to keep pushing, keep showing the world who they really are. They're going to have to find ways to attract younger members while still honoring their traditions. It's a tall order, but if there's one thing these clubs know how to do, it's to overcome obstacles. Outro. So there you have it. Motorcycle clubs aren't only a bunch of thugs looking for trouble. They're mostly a homegrown American blend of brotherhood, service, and unconventional community support. These groups have come a long way from their post-war roots, evolving into organizations that often do more good than most people realize. Next time you see a group of bikers rolling down the street, don't just assume you know their story. Maybe they're on their way to raise money for a local charity or to support a kid who's being bullied. As Dr. William Delaney puts it, the reality of everyday life in motorcycle clubs is neither dangerous nor exciting. It's about community, support, and making a difference. So ask yourself, are these guys really outlaws, or could they be the unsung heroes your community needs? The answer just might surprise you. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. Peace.